So we are a premier executive and leadership coaching entity in Sri Lanka. So organizations who consider their high potentials or future leaders nominate their HODs, senior managers, vice presidents. And if the culture is right and you are emerging as a great employer brand, and it becomes a preferred organization to join for potential people who you plan to onboard. And we have seen over the 9 years, about 18 of the great managers who were previously recognized have got into the C levels now. So the takeaway is, what can you do with these managers and what are the individual development plans that's available for them to further stretch.
That good people leave good companies because of bad managers. A manager can make or break your organization. Hello everyone, my name is Shehan, and today I have with me Riaz Hassen, the founder and chief executive officer of the Colombo Leadership Academy. So Riaz, thank you so much for being with us here today at Echelon. Riaz, run us through the Great Manager Awards.
Yeah, so Great Manager Award, Shehan, was introduced in Sri Lanka 9 years ago. And it is also called Companies with Great Managers,
right,
where we recognize and celebrate great managers or high potentials in the organization.
Right. So can you just briefly run through the process? How does the process work? How do you recognize organizations eligible for this award, or people who are managers who are eligible for this award?
Yeah, so the awards process itself is only open to corporates.
Okay.
Individuals cannot apply for this award.
Right.
So organizations who consider their high potentials or future leaders nominate their HODs, senior managers, vice presidents for this awards platform.
Right.
So we have a assessment model, which is called the DACT 5X.
Right. Okay.
And where we evaluate these nominees from driving results and execution, alignment to drive the organizational vision, whether they are coaching and developing people, team effectiveness, and their overall leadership integrity.
Right.
So there are 5 spectrums of measurements that's happening.
Okay.
And each nominee is assessed by their peers and subordinates.
Okay. So DACT 5X means there are 5 different areas.
5 different, yeah, from driving results, alignment, coaching, teams, and integrity. This is totally different to conservative measurement of a KPI in a company.
Okay.
Because that's a word that we have heard so much and bored with. So this evolved. As much as you recognize companies for their expertise or awards or excellence, we also must recognize the human capital.
Okay.
So in that process, this evolved globally.
Right.
How you could put a spotlight on your great managers.
Great. So I think that it has a lot to do with corporate culture as well, right?
Absolutely.
But how, my question is, how can you measure culture?
Culture is very much intangible. We believe culture is the DNA of the company. Because you may have great brands with you, you may have great service brands with you, which is the business side of your organization.
Yes.
But culture becomes your people side. And if the culture is right and you are emerging as a great employer brand, and people and organizations align well, if the organization culture is great, and organizations whose culture is great, they tend to retain key talent with you. And it becomes a preferred organization to join for potential people who you plan to onboard.
Absolutely. So Riaz, these Great Manager Awards, is it backed by a global body? Or is it a local organization that's running it?
It evolved from a global body with so many strategic partners involved.
Okay.
From people business, Hofstede's, the leadership circle.
Right.
So from various continents. So it moved to Sri Lanka about 9 years ago.
Okay.
And we were the first to bag this and bring it here.
Right.
At the outset, it was somewhat difficult because organizations felt it's only the organization who should win the awards. They did not want to put a spotlight on their people,
right,
fearing that we might lose our people. So that never happened, and they nurtured more people into senior leadership roles. And we have seen over the 9 years, about 18 of the great managers who were previously recognized have got into the C levels now.
Right. Excellent. So, this proprietary model or process that the companies and the managers go through, what happens after that? Like, have you seen any differences in the companies and in the people after going through that entire process?
Yes, we have a very substantial size of data of the nominees in Sri Lanka. And what distinguishes a Sri Lankan great manager with another great manager in the continent, we can see the differences of the leadership competencies. After the awards and the assessment, we go back to the companies and we produce them a report. Where do the quality of managers that you represent stand compared to the winning managers in the industry? So there's a lot of learning and takeaways and creating a lot of self-awareness about the quality of your managers compared to the winning managers in the industry.
Understood. So now, as you know, Sri Lanka has a very unique culture in our organizations, right? What changes would you want the Great Manager Awards to do for the culture of the Sri Lankan organizations?
Cultures are built by great leaders. And those who are great leaders have to be great managers first. So it is your live wire. So every organization has a live wire, and the managers outnumber the exco or the leadership team. So if your vision and the strategy, if you want to cascade it down the line, you need to instill a great culture. And great cultures are built by great employee brands.
Right.
So in an organization, sometimes we look at the vision and the mission and various objectives. And we sometimes pay less attention to developing a culture. And having developed a culture, that becomes your only sustainable advantage to compete in the market.
Also, Riaz, so I think this entire program is run by the Colombo Leadership Academy. Can you just briefly explain about your organization, what you all do, and your objectives as well?
Yeah, so Colombo Leadership Academy is about 16 years old in Sri Lanka. And about 6 years ago, we ventured out to North America as well under the name of CLA Coaching.
Okay.
So we are a premier executive and leadership coaching entity in Sri Lanka.
Right.
Mostly coaching and preparing the C-level or the future CEOs of Sri Lanka through a very structured assessment model and building the high profile to take over the successions and the future roles.
So Riaz, now say I am a company and I am interested in going through this entire process of identifying the great managers within my organization. How do I get into this whole process? How do I get into this whole system of identifying and finding out who my great managers are?
The slots that you get or the nomination slots is as per the size of the company.
Okay.
So you are not necessarily competing with your industry peers.
Ah, nice. Okay.
So if you are a company with 300 employees, the starting point is you get 10 nominations. You can nominate 10 HODs or senior managers. And likewise, it keeps growing. If you are a 2,000 employee company, you get a maximum of 40 managers you can nominate.
Right.
And the assessment begins how your leadership is cascading below the levels of your authority, the direct reports, peers and subordinates. Because sometimes at the exco level, at the board level, we know what you are doing. But what we really don't see is what you are doing to the people where you are providing leadership. So it gives a very 180-degree access of how your leadership is resonating among your peers and deputies.
Right. So that I think wraps up we have to discuss today. Riaz, anything else that you want to say before we...
We have faced enormous challenges. Sometimes organizations nominate their key people and they are not seen emerging as a winner in this model.
Okay.
So we believe that all high performers who are inside the organizations may not be leadership material. So this model which evolved over the years and keep evolving every year. We keep developing the model, the types of questions to ask. So the first phase is about internal assessment of how your leadership looks like.
Okay.
And having achieved the benchmark score for Sri Lanka, you face a governor's interview. So we have 26 governors globally and some are from Sri Lankan companies. And they have a one-on-one chat with the shortlisted nominees. It's a very stringent process. So what the governors try to identify is you are doing great, you are a great performer. How well are you aligned to the organizational picture? So sometimes we see a disconnect. You are not aware of what the organization is doing or what the culture is, like women empowerment, diversity, equity, and inclusion. So that connects and builds an awareness of a good ecosystem of nurturing great managers inside the companies.
What you said is very interesting, right? So just because we apply, we don't get nominated.
You don't get.
You don't get.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
So some companies have seen their high potentials have not been recognized. So you may be a high potential doing great in sales or business development or in your functional domain.
Okay.
That doesn't mean you are a leadership material. So there's a lot of takeaway. At the end of the program, we submit a large report about mapping your culture, the leadership accessibility, the women empowerment. Can you challenge the status quo? Where do you see the company is heading? So if you are a manager, even if you are not in an exco level or strategic level, you should be very well aware of where it's going or what the company culture is. So we try to instill that in the awareness process and provide this feedback. Out of the nominees, so many won and so many did not win. Why didn't they win? So the takeaway is, what can you do with these managers and what are the individual development plans that's available for them to further stretch?
Okay.
So over the years, we have seen it's helping companies to blend these feedback process and develop them into their learning and development process and nurture more future leaders in the companies.
Right. So now say I am a manager, right? And then my organization applies or nominates me as a prospective candidate for the Great Manager Awards, right? And I fall just about 1 or 2 points behind, your expected level. Is there a chance for me to sort of level up during that year, or do I have to wait for the next year to get into the process once again?
It's after the feedback. There are organizations who have nominated them again, having provided the feedback.
Okay.
So we have seen they have aligned with the feedback, they have improved the competencies, and again sometimes winning the award.
Okay.
So it's not about winning the award, it's about knowing where is the quality of your managers compared to the quality of the winning managers in the industry. So the very purpose of we touching this award is to raise the benchmark of Sri Lankan managers and improve their leadership effectiveness.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Riaz, for your time. Really appreciate you taking the time to be with us here today and talk to us about the Great Manager Awards.
Thank you, Shah.
Thank you so much.